Bradford is one of the youngest cities in the UK, as Rima Ahmed from BBC Leeds, BBC Yorkshire has been telling us, and it is also one of the poorest places. And Rima, that's a subject we want to look at now. What does poverty mean here in Bradford?
It's a really interesting one because, when we talk about socio-economic deprivation, that really refers to the lack of scarcity of resources and opportunities, really. And when we were speaking to those young people earlier, that's exactly what they told us. It's a lack of opportunity. It's a bit of a desert for opportunity, especially as it pertains to jobs. But in Bradford, like many other local authorities in the UK, there are communities that are experiencing really high levels of deprivation, and the use of food banks is through the roof, as it is in other areas as well. There's a quite high unemployment, so compared to the rest of the country, Bradford's employment rate is lower than the national average. 43% of 16 plus people are considered economically inactive. That means they're not in work and they're not looking for work actively right now. So that really paints a picture of where we're at in Bradford in terms of that deprivation. But it's really difficult to break the cycle without the right government interventions. When I speak to people, many locals feel like those in power have left the city behind entirely when it comes to issues like health, education, access to health. All of those sorts of things are things that come up quite a lot, and people do feel like Bradford has been left behind.
The first thing we did, Rima, today when our team made it here to Bradford, we went to see a food bank, essentially a donation centre, where if you are struggling to pay the bills, you can go into a community centre and pick up bags of groceries, bags of food, and you don't have to pay for them. You don't have to pay because those who need that food simply cannot afford to go to the shops. And as we were there, we spoke to some of the volunteers. We saw the people handing out free cups of coffee, giving people a place to sit for a few hours, giving them a chance to just catch their breath from some really difficult lives. And we spoke to a couple of younger people. Rob is 28, Emily is 19. They both volunteer at the Bradford Central Food Bank that we went to, and they also have used its food supplies as well in their own lives. And they were joined by Josie, who runs the food bank. We'll hear firstly from Emily on how her life has changed since discovering that centre.
I moved in just around the corner from the food bank, and I had no money, no food, no nothing, and I got referred to the food bank, and they helped me multiple times. So I just thought it's very nice to give back to the community.
So what's your job here right now?
Right now is I'm working in the kitchen, but I also work on the fresh. I work in the back in the warehouse. I help tidy up, clean up, hoover up. I help with everything. I come to the church on a Sunday, I come to the home church on a Wednesday. It's just very nice. It's like having a big family all in one.
Emily, that moment where money's really, really tight, can you tell us what that's like, what that feels like?
I feel depressed. I feel anxious. I feel like I can't leave the house. I feel like there's nothing for me to really do. So I like coming to the food bank because it keeps me busy, it keeps me active, it's something to do. And obviously living in supported accommodation like a hostel or anything like that, it's very hard to even get a job because you have to pay too much money to even live there a week, let alone you're paying as much as you're paying in your flat a month as we're paying a week just to live in a hostel.
Let's bring in our other guest, Rob, sitting right next to me here at the table. How are things with you?
So it's much the same case as Emily. We live in the same hostel. I'm on Universal Credit as well, and I volunteer at the food bank. And I'm only here from using the services myself. I had to come in a fair few times for food parcels myself, and I saw the great work Josie and the rest of the staff were doing at Bradford Central, and I thought I'd get involved. But with the situation on Universal Credit, it's become almost a necessity to get involved because I get a lot from the food bank as well. It was as you mentioned earlier, we do hot meals and stuff, so it's mutually beneficial. It helps me it helps me a lot as well.
And on those first moments where you think, I think I need some help to get by, what are those moments like?
It's shameful. It's really shameful, and it is. I just feel like I'm constantly walking around with this big cloud over me. It's I think poverty sometimes it feels like it's kind of your fault and everyone's out to get you and stuff. It's it's hard.
How are things now?
Much the same situation, to be fair, on universal credit and stuff. I think the allowance is just under £400. It's not enough. It's a real struggle.
And Rob, you've talked about that really difficult first step through those doors just a few metres away from us. And Josie, when people like Rob come in, you can probably tell the immense bravery it must take to come in.
Yeah, I mean, well, we have queues of people waiting to come in to get different levels of help, whether that's food, whether that's fuel grants. Some people have been here before, other people haven't, and so it's really when you sit down and chat with people that you kind of really find out where people are at. And yeah, some people are really embarrassed and just can't believe they're here, even though they're working, and they just can't believe it's come to needing a food bank.
And Rob, because you experienced that feeling yourself, now that you're a volunteer here, if you see someone new, you must know what's going through their mind a bit.
Yeah, of course. So it's a lot easier to relate and empathise with clients, especially when you've been in the same situation. And I think it's not just myself. There's a lot of volunteers here as well who've had lived experience, and I think it has a great effect on the food bank and the service we provide to clients. Because as I said before, there's more respect and empathy, especially when we've been through the same situation.
And Emily, working here as well, in your own life outside the centre, do you know others who are struggling?
I grew up in a very low income family. My mum, she struggles. My sister, she lives in the same hostel as me. She's struggling at the moment. We all live on benefits. We all struggle. We all only get a low income, and it's extra hard for me and my sister, as we only get £265 a month to live off of, and that is not a lot. Some people get that work in just a week.
And on £265, which for our international listeners is about $450 or so, do you have in your mind how much you spend on everything in order to make that last for a month?
I struggle to budget, but half of the time I end up with no food because I have to pay all my bills first.
And so that's what, Electric,
no gas, service charge, and then there's also like my water, my TV licence, my Wi-Fi, all that on top, and then that leaves me with little for food. It leaves me with £40 for food a month, sometimes only £20.
What about like travel or clothes?
I don't have none. I have to go to the charity shop, or I have to ask for it to be passed down from other friends or family.
Rob, can I ask what your monthly budget is like and how you make that last the month?
Well, to be frank, I don't. There's bills I haven't been paying just because I simply can't afford. As Emily said, with council tax, water, electric and gas, and food as well. It's just not enough for it all. On my universal credit, I think around about 360 a month. Like that alone is not enough to cover utility bills, let alone food, or God forbid I need a new T-shirt or a pair of socks or anything. It's not enough, and it's not covering it.
And 350 is about $450 And Josie, when Emily and Rob and others come to you with, presumably sometimes with bills in hand, what kind of advice can you give about which one you pay, which one you can get help on? How does that work?
Well, giving debt help's kind of regulated, so we wouldn't be able to give sort of that level of financial advice. We can help people to budget and things like that.
Talk me through that.
Well, we can sort of help people draw up a bit of a simple budget, which somebody's doing before they give a fuel grant, especially when you're on a young person's universal credit limit, which is even less than a single person. You just physically can't live on that, which is kind of why, as well as doing food and trying to help with other services and things, we sort of campaigning government. So we're part of the Trussell Trust network of food banks, which is basically saying they need to raise the level of universal credit so it is livable, because people shouldn't be having to live on 20 quid for food. It's just ridiculous. It's impossible.
Rob, when it comes to the search for a job for you, talk us through how that's going.
Well, it's. I mean, this is part of the problem because I live in supported accommodation. If I were to work full time, I'd be liable for rent, and because it's a hostel, it's supported accommodation. The rent I think is around about £340 a week. £340 a week. So we're looking at £1,400 a month. Like if I were to walk into an unskilled job, that's what I'd be taking home a month, the £1,400, and I'd be liable for the rent. So there's absolutely no way I can work at the moment in temporary accommodation. I think that's part of it. That's part of the issue as well. It's almost like it keeps us down, And
Emily, what about you in the world of work? Because obviously you're busy because you're here, and you said you work at the church as well. Your time is very busy. But how would you get to the world of a paid job, which would then get you into housing and so on?
I grew up in care. So I was back and forth from Bradford, other areas, Wakefield and stuff like that. And I ended up, I was working in takeaways and restaurants and dessert shops when I was 16 and 17. And then at 17 I got pregnant and I moved to a mother and baby unit down in Wales. And that I lost my job due to being pregnant. And then when I came back to Bradford, I managed to get my job back, the exact same job, I managed to get it back. And then new owners took over a month afterwards and I lost my job due to it being new owners, and they had their own staff and everything like that. And then obviously it was also a struggle because it was part-time, so I couldn't do full-time work, it was part-time, and I was still having to pay extra for my bills, and I was still having to pay half my rent instead of full of my rent. I was paying half of my rent, and it just wasn't enough because I was living in Bradford Foyer at the time, and it's like £40-50 service charge a week, as well as water, as well as TV licence and Wi-Fi and all that lot. So I want to run my own hotel and my own catering business. So I want to have a hotel and have my own restaurant downstairs and sell my own food and cakes.
What are the steps that would get you to that in the end?
Just civilians, keeping up, keeping motivated, keeping my head up high, trying to keep the depression out of my head, trying to not let depression and anxiety and social anxiety get to my head before my success does.
Rob, everyone in life goes through ups and downs, and of course on your plate it's bigger than on most people's plates. How do you keep your own spirits up?
Oh, that's a difficult one. I always think there's somebody in a worse position than yourself. As I said, I live in a hostel at the moment. It's temporary accommodation. I've seen some absolutely terrible things there. But it's four walls. It's a roof. I think I'm saying that to say this. I'm still here. I've got air in my lungs. I get to see life. I mean that's all what keeps me going. It could be worse. I'm still here. I've got the gift of life. So we carry on here.
When you come in this building, Emily, is there a difference between your spirits outside this building and once you get here?
Yeah, there's a big difference because before I came here, I didn't believe in God. I knew there was something, and I knew there was something there. I never had the belief. I lost a few family members in the past couple of weeks and had a few ups and downs. And God helped me bring that to light, helped me bring life to a better place. I think believing in faith has helped me believe in something to help with my depression, to help my anxiety, to help me become forward and to help me to be a better and bigger person in life. And it's just so much easier coming here and coming to church, and it's really like having family.
Emily and Rob, who use the Bradford Central Foodbank, and Josie, who runs it. And Rob mentioned Universal Credit, which is basic financial support from the UK government. Rima Ahmed, BBC reporter, still with me. There's a difficult contradiction here.